I mean, she played an incredible match, and I tried my very best. I was fighting till the very last point. I had my opportunities. Feels like I missed couple, but I mean, it's tennis, you know. Today you loser, tomorrow you winner. So hopefully, I'll be more of a winner this season than a loser. So hoping right now and praying.
The tennis community is completely shocked at this moment, and if you haven't caught wind of the announcement yet, you should probably take a seat for this revelation. Aryna Sabalenka, the globe's top-ranked player and the athlete who just fought with everything she had in the Australian Open Championship match, has officially withdrawn from the Qatar Open. But here's the surprising part that everyone's overlooking. She's not the sole competitor fleeing the scene. This isn't merely a single athlete making a difficult choice regarding her calendar. This is a complete evacuation, a widespread desertion, a competition meltdown of massive scale. The Qatar Open is essentially falling apart right in front of us, and what we're observing at this time could transform everything about how the WTA functions for many years ahead. Let me show you the entire scenario of this utter pandemonium. Because when you notice the full roster of participants withdrawing from this competition, your mouth is going to drop open. Sabalenka captures the attention because she's the most prominent figure, the reigning globe's top-ranked athlete who claimed this exact competition back in 2020 when she was still proving herself as a victor.
So the other day with Alex Eala, you know, that's been a talk, and which is understandable. You know, there's some players coming from respective countries, like she's coming from Philippines, which is now a big deal. You know, she's been the biggest ever, you know, tennis player from that country, which is a big country and there's big interest. So things like that happen. I mean, it's you could argue that it was, you know, maybe a poor schedule and maybe they could schedule them on a bigger court. Yes, but again, she's so young and she's just coming through. So and obviously the first couple of rounds, the schedule is so packed. The big courts with big names, it's difficult. It's not easy to manage that. But again, it's a good problem to have, to be honest. You know.
This was definitely one of the bigger Filipino turnouts. New York was huge. It was tough because it also depends what court you're on, you know, that you feel the noise and things. I would say the top two so far have been Melbourne and New York.
However, she's merely the beginning of the situation. Jessica Pegula, presently positioned as the globe's sixth-ranked player and among the most reliable competitors on the circuit, determined she'd prefer to be practically any place other than Doha. Naomi Osaka, the quadruple Grand Slam victor who's been attempting to navigate her path back to optimal condition, glanced at the Middle Eastern portion and declined participation in the complete thing. Madison Keys pulled out. Barbara Krejcikova is absent. The casualty roster continues growing with competitors like Marketa Vondrausova stepping aside to heal from different physical problems. Even Leylah Fernandez, whom tennis enthusiasts were eager to witness this season, hasn't yet begun her 2025 campaign. Are you beginning to notice the difficulty here? This isn't a typical circumstance where one or two competitors have genuine injuries and must make difficult decisions. This is methodical. This is calculated. This is half the women's circuit examining the Qatar Open and jointly determining it's not worth their effort, stamina, or physique. The competition coordinators in Doha must be completely panicking at this moment. They advertised this occasion with the guarantee of world-class tennis featuring the largest names in the women's sport. They distributed tickets months beforehand to enthusiasts who desired to witness Sabalenka, Pegula, Osaka, and all these remarkable athletes battle at the highest standard. They obtained sponsorships and broadcast agreements based on the celebrity influence that was intended to illuminate their venues. And currently, what do they possess? A competition so diminished that they're rushing to populate the primary bracket with competitors who were initially expected to be struggling through preliminary rounds merely to enter. Let that register for a period. The Qatar Open, a top-tier level WTA occasion that's intended to display elite tennis, is currently granting primary bracket positions to competitors like Alexandria Eala, Emiliana Arango, Daria Kasatkina, Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova, and Kristina Buxa. Not because these competitors secured their path through preliminaries, but because there's practically nobody else to occupy the positions. The spaces that were designated for the premier competitors in the globe are currently filled by athletes who, while skilled, were never intended to be the main attractions of this occasion. That's not a criticism of these competitors whatsoever. They're professional tennis competitors battling at an exceptionally high standard. But this isn't how a flagship WTA competition is expected to operate. You don't construct a top-tier occasion by filling gaps in your roster because everyone you genuinely desired determined to leave. The chain reaction here is captivating to observe, and it all begins with comprehending what Sabalenka just experienced in Melbourne. The Australian Open Championship match against Elena Rybakina wasn't merely another contest. It was a harsh, emotionally crushing struggle that left Sabalenka completely devastated. And here's what makes this so intriguing. Sabalenka didn't attempt to conceal it. In her post-contest media conference, she was remarkably candid about how she was experiencing things, and her openness provides us an uncommon glimpse into the psychological and bodily price that elite tennis genuinely takes on these athletes. When questioned about her showing, Sabalenka didn't offer the typical corporate athlete reply. She didn't state she contributed everything and she's satisfied with her attempt, and she'll gain knowledge from this and return stronger next occasion. Instead, she stated something far more genuine and far more disclosing. She confessed that Rybakina performed an amazing contest and that she attempted her complete best, but it simply wasn't sufficient. She recognized that she had chances and senses like she overlooked a handful, but then she gestured and stated, "That's simply tennis. One day you're the defeated, the following day you're the victor." And then arrived the statement that should inform you everything about her perspective. "Hopefully I'll be more of a victor this season than a defeated competitor," wishing at this moment and requesting divine intervention. Let's halt right there because that declaration is completely significant. This is the globe's top-ranked player, a woman who has claimed numerous Grand Slam championships and controlled the circuit for years. And she's practically stating she wishes and requests divine help she triumphs more than she fails this year. That's not the assured champion communication you usually receive from elite athletes. That's somebody who just had her spirit extracted in a Grand Slam championship and is attempting to reassemble herself while recording devices are directed at her presence. That's openness, that's candor. That's what genuinely occurs when you invest everything you possess into a competition for 2 weeks, advance all the distance to the championship, and fall just brief. The reporter advanced further, questioning Sabalenka when she intended to examine her Australian Open showing with her group. Her reply was even more revealing. She stated she wasn't certain when she'd be prepared to view the contests back and joked with her representative about it, stating perhaps in a week or perhaps in a handful of days whenever she senses like she can genuinely progress from this defeat. Then she characterized her present emotional condition as a mixture of chuckling and weeping, labeling it a frantic moment that wasn't truly beneficial. She was simply releasing everything, discharging all the annoyance and letdown and fury that had been accumulating. She confessed she was displeased with herself because once more she sensed like she had chances but couldn't sustain her standard when Rybakina intensified the forcefulness. But then in a period of self-recognition, she stopped herself and recognized that altogether she performed excellent tennis in Australia, even in the championship, and that she contributed her complete best. Rybakina was merely the superior competitor that day. Basic as that, but here's the portion that truly demonstrates what elite athletes endure behind the curtains, the portion that the recording devices don't capture and the feature compilations don't display. Sabalenka stated, "We'll converse with the group, how they attempt to evade me because it's not truly beneficial to be surrounding me at this moment." Consider that declaration for a moment. She's practically cautioning individuals that she's in such a harmful mental condition after this defeat that her personal group, the individuals who are compensated to assist her and aid her through challenging periods, are deliberately attempting to distance themselves from her because being surrounding her is mentally exhausting. That degree of openness is nearly unprecedented in professional tennis. Most competitors safeguard their reputation cautiously, presenting sanitized editions of their feelings that fit precisely into the story of the resilient victor who constantly recovers. Sabalenka is out here informing the globe that she's weeping, chuckling frantically, and that she's so intolerable to be surrounding that her group is providing her distance because they can't manage her present disposition. This is what genuinely occurs when you commit your complete existence to a sport, struggle your path through 2 harsh weeks of contests at a Grand Slam and fall just brief in the championship. You don't simply instantly switch a control and become prepared to battle again a week afterward. You're psychologically demolished. You're bodily drained. You require time to handle the sorrow, the letdown, the hypothetical scenarios that continue replaying in your thoughts. You require distance to be genuine, to sense your emotions, to permit yourself to be crushed before you can begin reconstructing. So when you examine Sabalenka's removal from Qatar through this perspective, it suddenly becomes completely logical. The woman is emotionally devastated and bodily depleted after Melbourne. She requires time to restore her mental state before she advances back on a tennis venue. Competing in another high-standard competition merely days after encountering that type of emotional injury would be professional negligence. She'd arrive ill-prepared, likely fail early, and excavate herself into an even deeper psychological predicament that would require weeks or months to escape from. Accepting a calculated pause to heal isn't frailty. It's intelligent administration of a lengthy profession. But here's where circumstances get intriguing, and here's where the calculated assessments begin to become apparent. It's extremely fortunate that Sabalenka is solely withdrawing from a competition where she's not protecting substantial positioning credits and where she hasn't succeeded notably well in recent years. Her finest outcome at the Qatar Open was claiming it back in 2020, but her showings since then have been disappointing at best. She's not sacrificing much in the standings by avoiding this occasion. In reality, she might genuinely be safeguarding her positioning by recuperating and returning powerful for larger competitions later in the season where she has more credits to protect. Now, I'm not suggesting Sabalenka is fabricating her emotional fatigue or inventing her requirement for rest. Mental wellness and exhaustion are completely genuine concerns in professional athletics, and anyone who's observed her profession knows she's handled mental difficulties on venue. But it's also accurate that competitors at the standard are becoming progressively calculated about which competitions they participate in and which ones they avoid. The WTA schedule is completely harsh, filled with obligatory occasions and top-tier competitions that all require peak showing. You bodily cannot participate in everything at complete intensity without deteriorating, so competitors must select and pick. They give precedence to the occasions that signify most for their positioning, their reward funds, their endorsement responsibilities, and their heritage. Everything else becomes discussable. The Qatar Open plainly falls into that discussable classification for numerous competitors this year. When you regard the scheduling arriving merely days after the Australian Open with no genuine healing interval, the site requiring substantial journey to the Middle East, and the reality that it occurs right before Dubai, which is a larger and more distinguished WTA 1000 occasion, it's simple to perceive why competitors are deciding to avoid Doha. If you're going to arrive to the Middle Eastern portion, you might as well preserve your stamina for the competition that genuinely signifies, the one with the larger reward funds and the more substantial positioning credits and the superior rivalry. What makes this notably agonizing for the Qatar Open coordinators is that Sabalenka genuinely has background with their competition. She launched in Doha in 2020 and instantly secured the championship in magnificent manner, declaring herself as a future celebrity of the circuit. That should generate some devotion or attachment to the occasion. That should make her desire to return and protect her heritage there. But apparently claiming a competition 6 years ago doesn't generate sufficient responsibility to arrive when you're exhausted, devastated, and emotionally demolished from a Grand Slam championship defeat. Sabalenka doesn't have obligations to Qatar merely because she triumphed there once upon a period, particularly when her physique and thoughts are demanding at her to accept a pause. The competition coordinators must be in complete emergency state at this moment. They constructed their complete promotional effort around having the premier competitors in women's tennis battling on their venues. They distributed exclusive tickets to affluent tennis enthusiasts in the territory who desired to witness world-class athletes. They obtained profitable endorsement agreements based on the guarantee of flagship confrontations and engaging narratives. And currently, week by week, day by day, they've observed their bracket get completely devastated by removals. Their premier participant is currently Iga Swiatek, and she solely obtained that status because practically everyone positioned above her in the competition arrangement withdrew. Their highlighted contests are currently between competitors that most casual tennis enthusiasts have never encountered. The celebrity influence they were depending on has disappeared. From an enthusiast viewpoint, this circumstance must be exceptionally aggravating. Visualize you're a tennis devotee residing in Qatar or the broader Middle Eastern territory. The Qatar Open is one of the limited chances you obtain each year to witness world-class women's tennis. You purchase tickets months beforehand, arranging your timetable around the competition, thrilled to witness Sabalenka and Pegula in Osaka and all these remarkable athletes battle at the highest standard. Then one by one they all pull out. Sabalenka requires rest. Pegula has a casualty. Osaka is avoiding the complete portion. Keys withdraws. Krejcikova can't attend. Suddenly, the competition you contributed quality funds to witness appears nothing like what was promoted. You're observing what senses more like a challenger occasion than a top-tier WTA rivalry. At what stage do you begin requesting a reimbursement? At what stage does the competition forfeit trustworthiness? But reverse the viewpoint to the competitors themselves, notably somebody in Sabalenka's status, and the assessment appears completely different. She just encountered one of the most emotionally demanding periods of her professional profession. She's drained in every conceivable manner. She compels herself to participate in Qatar while still handling what occurred in Melbourne. While still in that harmful mental condition she characterized, she's nearly definitely going to fail early anyway. She'll arrive ill-prepared, get defeated in the initial or subsequent round by somebody positioned outside the premier 50, forfeit positioning credits she otherwise would have retained, and intensify her psychological difficulties by adding another disappointing outcome to the collection. The intelligent action, the professional action, is to acknowledge when you're not prepared and accept the duration you require to restore. This complete circumstance reveals a basic difficulty with how the WTA organizes its schedule. There are merely too many obligatory and top-tier standard occasions crammed into too brief a duration period. Competitors are anticipated to sustain peak showing for basically 11 months out of the year. The inactive season is scarcely lengthy sufficient to mend from casualties, let alone accept a significant psychological pause and refresh for another demanding year. The outcome is precisely what we're witnessing in Qatar. Competitors are exhausted, wounded, and psychologically drained, so they're compelled to make calculated determinations about which competitions signify and which ones they can manage to avoid. The competitions that conclude getting forfeited are the ones with regrettable scheduling, reduced reward funds, or diminished distinction. Iga advancing as the fresh premier participant in Doha is intriguing from a rivalry standpoint. She's the globe's second-ranked player and debatably the most controlling competitor on the circuit at this moment. With Sabalenka and half the other premier competitors out of the bracket, Swiatek's route to the championship just expanded significantly. She must be examining this circumstance, considering it's a golden chance to gather some effortless positioning credits and reward funds against reduced rivalry. But even that triumph would seem somewhat meaningless, wouldn't it? Claiming a competition because everyone else pulled out isn't the equivalent as defeating them directly and demonstrating you're the finest competitor in the participants. Certainly, you obtain the award and the credits and the payment, but there's constantly going to be a notation in individuals' thoughts. Oh, affirmative, Swiatek claimed Qatar, but Sabalenka and Pegula and Osaka weren't even there. The competitors who got elevated from preliminaries into the primary bracket should be delighted though. Athletes like Alex Eala, Daria Kasatkina, Kristina Buxa, and others are obtaining an unexpected chance to battle at a standard they might not have achieved on their personal achievement. This could be a profession-establishing period for some of them. A substantial advance in a top-tier occasion, even one that's been diminished by removals, can completely transform your positioning, your assurance, and your complete path as a professional tennis competitor. Suddenly you're entering into larger competitions automatically. Suddenly endorsers are interested in collaborating with you. Suddenly you're a title that tennis enthusiasts acknowledge. That's the positive aspect to all this disorder. While the competition forfeits its celebrity influence and distinction, it obtains unpredictability. You might witness some unfamiliar competitor proceed on a motivated advance and become the subsequent major narrative in women's tennis. That's the excellence of athletics. When the preferred competitors don't arrive, somebody else obtains their period to excel. Sabalenka's declared intention is to recuperate and heal and then return for the Dubai Championships. Dubai is a substantially larger matter than Qatar in terms of distinction, reward funds, and positioning credits. It's a WTA 1000 occasion compared to Qatar's designation. So tactically, it makes complete logic to avoid the smaller competition and preserve your stamina for the larger one. She's not deserting the Middle Eastern portion completely. She's not concealing from rivalry. She's merely being selective and clever about where she commits her bodily and psychological resources. That's professional athletics in reality. You can't accomplish everything, so you give precedence to what signifies most. The Dubai competition is going to be completely filled with ability, because it's one of those occasions where the presence payments and reward funds are considerable sufficient that competitors arrive even when they're exhausted, even when they're handling with minor casualties, even when they'd prefer to be recuperated. That's the actuality of professional tennis that enthusiasts don't constantly perceive. Funds communicates. If the compensation is substantial sufficient, if the presence payment makes it worth your effort, suddenly everyone discovers the stamina and inspiration to battle. If the monetary motivations aren't there, well, perhaps you require to accept a handful of days to recuperate and heal and concentrate on your psychological wellness. What this complete Qatar Open catastrophe truly reveals is the basic separation between what enthusiasts desire and what competitors require. Enthusiasts desire to witness the finest competitors battling at every competition, contributing maximum attempt, generating amazing contests and engaging narratives. Enthusiasts desire their preferred athletes to arrive and execute like champions every single week. Competitors, on the other side, desire to possess lengthy, beneficial professions. They desire to evade casualties that could obstruct their optimal years. They desire to claim the competitions that genuinely signify for their heritage and their financial account. They desire to make calculated determinations that maximize their acquiring capability while reducing the bodily and psychological deterioration on their physiques. Those two collections of wishes don't constantly correspond, and when they clash, the competitors are going to select their personal welfare every single occasion. The WTA requires to basically reconsider how it organizes the schedule, or circumstances like Qatar are going to continue occurring. Competitions are going to continue getting devastated by removals because competitors are drained and wounded and psychologically depleted. The resolution might be to distribute occasions out more throughout the year, providing competitors genuine healing intervals between competitions. It might be to diminish the quantity of obligatory occasions, so competitors have more adaptability in constructing their timetable. It might be to elevate reward funds across the spectrum, so even the smaller competitions become appealing sufficient that competitors arrive regardless of how they're sensing. Whatever the resolution is, the present arrangement plainly isn't operating. We're observing a top-tier standard competition collapse in actual duration because the competitors it's intended to display would prefer to be practically anyplace else. Until the WTA makes significant modifications to address competitor exhaustion and timetable congestion, we're going to continue witnessing precisely what's occurring in Qatar. A competition that should be thrilling and aggressive and abundant with celebrity influence transforms into a fragment of what it was intended to be. Sabalenka's removal is merely the most recent and most high-visibility example, but it completely won't be the final. As lengthy as the arrangement is established the manner it presently is, with unattainable anticipations and insufficient restorations, and an 11-month struggle, competitors are going to make calculated determinations about where to battle and where to recuperate. They're going to give precedence to their wellness over competition distinction. They're going to select the occasions that signify most and avoid the ones that don't, and competitions like Qatar are going to compensate the expense. So there you possess it. Aryna Sabalenka withdrew from the Qatar Open along with roughly half of the other premier competitors in women's tennis, and currently the competition has essentially become an unrestricted opportunity for whoever genuinely troubled to arrive. This isn't merely about one competitor making a difficult selection. This is about a methodical malfunction in how professional tennis functions. This is about a schedule that's unviable and an arrangement that's exhausting its largest celebrities. This is about the unavoidable clash between commercial concerns and athlete welfare. And based on everything we're witnessing at this moment, the athletes are selecting themselves. And genuinely, can you criticize them?